Buying a home is not a yes or no checkbox. It starts with your personal financial position. Before we talk about the market, the rates, or the prices, or headlines, this comes first. You should consider buying first if your income is stable or growing. I'm not saying perfect. Second, if you have a down payment saved, I'm not saying 20% either. People buy with 3.5% all the time. 20% is just a myth. It's not a requirement. Third, if your debt to income ratio supports the payment comfortably, not stretched, not hopeful, comfortable. Fourth, you are not expecting a major life disruption soon, a job change, a relocation, because the market doesn't live your life, you do. And if you are unsure about where you stand, guessing won't help. This is where getting pre-approved matters. Talking to lender doesn't mean you're shopping. You're just getting clarity of real numbers, because that changes everything. They turn opinions, hopes into decisions. Everyone says housing affordability is low today, but I think they are not looking at the entire picture. Housing affordability, it's not one thing. It's based on three factors: wages, prices, and interest rates. When people only look at one, the decision, the picture, it's not clear. It's confusing. We have data that shows since 1985, incomes rose roughly 255%, while home prices, they jumped about 415%. It's a long-term imbalance that's been building for decades and decades. So what's different today? The awareness. People have realized the gap. So what's the real question? The real question is, what do we do with that awareness? What do we do with that information? Well, first, we stop waiting for the gap to disappear, because historically, this gap has never disappeared. It never would. Instead, buyers move forward by buying smarter inside the gap. So that means focusing on the monthly payment, not just the price, using the negotiation power when competition is lower, choosing homes that work long-term, not just the short-term trends, and letting income growth and time do the heavy lifting. That's how buyers move forward in a market where prices grew faster than wages. Not by sitting on the sidelines, but by making informed, intentional decisions going in the right direction. Interest rates. Now, those COVID years, when we had the interest rate at 2%, 2.5%, they were unicorn years for the real estate. We may never see those kind of rates again. I personally watched homes sell $200,000 over asking. No kidding, no joke. Not because the homes were suddenly better, but because interest rates were around 2%. When rates are that low, competition explodes. Buyers don't negotiate with sellers, they compete with other buyers. That's the trade-off. Fast forward to today, rates are in the sixes. And while that scares people at first, they do, it changes the market dynamic. Across much of the country, we are seeing more of a buyer's market today. What does that mean? Less frenzy, more breathing room. Buyers today have leverage. They can negotiate the price. They can ask for the closing costs. They can request seller credits. And those credits, they matter. Seller credits can be used for paying the closing costs, or they can be used for interest rate buy downs as well. Let's say a 2-1 buy down, where they can significantly lower the monthly payment for first 2 years, or a permanent 30-year buy down that can reduce the rate for the life of the loan. Now, that's a completely different conversation than what we had during the COVID years. So higher rates don't just change the payment, they change the power dynamic too. And buyers who understand this dynamic, they aren't waiting for rates to drop. They are using today's conditions to structure a smarter deal. Now let's talk about the prices. The prices that affect the affordability. Despite the fear headlines, did we see the prices collapse? Well, the data shows something different. Because housing supplies that remained limited, the prices largely stabilized. What changed was the price growth. It slowed. In some areas, it flattened. That distinction is important. A market where prices aren't rapidly climbing creates space. Space to negotiate, space to think long-term, space to buy without panic. So the real question for 2026, it's not, is this a good market or a bad market? No. The real question is, how do these three factors, the wages, the prices, and the interest rates, how do they work together for this specific situation? If income supports the payment, if interest rates create negotiating power, and if prices are no longer racing upward, buying can make sense. For some people, waiting is still the right move. For others, this is where the opportunity is showing up. Same market, different outcomes. The key is understanding the math, not reacting to the noise. So, should you buy in 2026? Well, here's the honest answer. Buy. If you plan to stay put for at least 5 years, you can afford the payment comfortably, and you are buying for use, not for investment, you'll find a home that fits long-term goals. Now, in this scenario, buying would lock in your housing cost. It would build your equity over time and would shield you from rising rents. But reconsider if you don't have an emergency saving fund, your job or income is unstable, you might need to relocate within a short window, or you can't qualify comfortably on real numbers. So if any of these are true, buying might feel good emotionally, while homeownership is American dream, but it might not make sense financially. So think, don't react.